This week, I'm working on camouflage as I paint up Colonel Corbec from Gaunt's Ghosts. I'm Angela, you're watching Hobby Night, now let's get into it. I'm not gonna lie, ever since I built up the Merkava tank a couple weeks ago, I have been contemplating my Imperial Guard army. Now I can't do much with them right now because I'm in the process of moving, but one of the things that I can do is add to them a little bit with something that I recently purchased just before I knew I was going to be needing to pack up. And that is the Imperial Guard Box Set for Gaunt's Ghosts, which recently released in plastic form, and honestly, they're stunning models. So I picked out my favorite of the bunch, which is Colonel Corbec, and I'm going to be painting him up today, pretty much following the guide that is on the box. Like, I want to get it as on art as I can. However, I am going to be doing something a little bit different with the camo pattern because I've been looking around online, I've been doing a little bit of research on what I want to do, and I think I have a really solid plan in mind. So first we're going to get the model primed up using a Zenithal prime, starting with a mid-tone gray, followed by a top-down prime using Wraithbone. Then I'm going to go back in with a quick dry brush using Wraithbone as well, just to hit the legs on the model a little bit because my Zenithal didn't quite get onto that part of the model as heavily as I wanted it to. Once that's done though, we can actually get to painting and start working on that cloak. All right, let's start on the cloak first because it's going to be the most tedious part and I think also the most fun. And we're going to start by putting a base color tone down of Militarum green, but I'm going to make sure to thin this with equal parts contrast medium to make sure that I can glaze this on to gradually build up the color. We're going to be applying a couple of different colors to this cloak, and a few of them are going to be washes, and I don't want the cloak to end up being too dark or muddy at the end, so I want to really be careful about how quickly I build up the Militarum green contrast paint on this first layer. It can suddenly get very dark very soon, and I really don't want that. Once I've hit a good color and I'm happy with where it's at and it's fully dried, we're going to start moving on to the actual camo pattern itself. For this, I'm going to start with Caliban green, a really nice dark green olive color tone that I'm going to apply horizontally across the model in a sort of cloud-like pattern that has some extra little tendrils coming off of it. As I was doing my research for camo, I saw that a lot of modern patterns sort of did this, and they looked sort of like inky blots, and that's something I did a lot when I was painting comic books, so I just applied that technique to the cloak, and I actually think it worked brilliantly. I want to make sure that I'm varying their sizes, not getting too repetitive because we don't want it to look too homogeneous, but overall, the technique is working really well so far.
What's the matter, Angela?
Well, I just moved on to the next color in his cloak, and I'm not super satisfied with it. It actually blends in with the Militarum green a little too well. You can barely tell that I put any paint right there, which is where it is.
Where?
Right there.
Like the dark spot?
Yeah, just between the two dark spots there.
Wait, between them?
Between them.
Move your finger.
Looks like nothing, right? Barely.
Oh,
you can
yeah,
maybe
okay.
barely tell.
Yeah, it's like the third time I filmed it and I'm only now seeing it.
Right? So you can barely tell, but I have an idea for a different color tone that I'm going to put over top of it instead as an alternate that I think will work a lot better. And with a technique that I'm going to apply to it afterwards, I'm actually hoping to get two colors out of it. So let's move on to that now. And that alternate color tone is Khaki Krieg. Because I already have a really nice mid-tone green down because of the Militarum contrast paint I used as my base coat, I figured why not move on to my lightest color tone. This Khaki Krieg color is perfect, and I think the pattern really starts to come together here. We're going to be approaching this the exact same way we did our darker color tone, except that this time I want to make sure that some of the points of the Khaki Krieg actually intersect with that dark color. This will help, I think, build up a more natural camouflage look, and if you actually look at true camo, they do this a lot. There's a lot of overlap, and there's something about it that helps the blend occur so that you don't actually notice people when they're wearing this pattern. And I just think it's working really, really well on this model. I love how this is turning out. But I don't want to stop there. I actually want to do one final thing to the cloak, and that's apply a camo shade wash over top of it to help blend all the colors together a little bit and make them feel like a printed seamless piece of fabric. This does exactly what I want. It settles into the crevices a little bit more, enhancing those shadows, popping some highlights back out, and it just works perfectly. I am so in love with this cloak.
It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon. All right, with the cloak done, and so that I stop gushing about it, we need to move on and actually work on the rest of the model. And we're gonna start with his uniform. For that, I'm going to pull out Grim Black, one of the new Army Painter speed paints, and apply this over his entire outfit, as well as the majority of his las gun.
Every time!
Every time! I always call it a las cannon, but it's a las gun, and we're painting everything on it black except the portions that would be wood. After we have that completed, we're going to move on to Hardened Leather, which I'm going to apply to any of the straps on his outfit, his belt, and of course, his headband. Now you might notice that I have not painted the hair yet, and he does have black hair, but don't worry, we're going to be getting to that in a bit, but I want it to look slightly different from the Grim Black that I've put on his uniform, so we're going to be going with a different color. I continue to be very happy with this model, and we now need to move on to his flesh tone, which is the one other thing on him that I was kind of nervous to paint. However, with the Taldan pink that I apply down first over top the Zenithal Prime that I got, holy crap, I have never seen a Zenithal Prime work this well with opaque paints before, and I have to say, I really, really like the Reaper paint line. They are just really solid colors and very creamy, and I just really like the way that they flow down. Once we have this base layer down, we're going to go ahead and go back over it using Reichland Flesh Shade, my go-to for Caucasian flesh to apply a shade. This is going to deepen the recesses, make those muscles pop a little bit more, and I think just bring the whole thing together. The last thing that we need to take care of is his hair. For this, I'm going to pull out Black Templar because, like I said, I wanted it to be different from the Grim Black that I did on his armor, and I figured this would give me an easy but subtle way to make that difference occur very easily, and it works exactly as I want it to. With this, we just need to take care of the weapons, so let's move on to that next. For the weapon, I'm going to go with something I think a little bit more traditional than I normally do, especially if you've watched any of my Space Marine painting tutorials. For this, we're going to start with wildwood, and we're going to apply this to those wood portions of his las gun that we did not paint earlier. This goes down seamlessly, and it works immediately like I want it to, so we can move on very quickly to working with some metallics. And for that, I'm going to pull out Plate Mail Steel, my go-to silver tone from the Army Painter. This is going to go on his chest piece that is underneath the cloak that you can kind of see a little bit, as well as majority of the decorative parts on the gun, as well as the bayonet itself. I love incorporating some of these metallics into my pieces a little bit more. As much as I do like working with contrast to create a non-metallic metal, true metallics with some contrast over top of it, like we're going to do next with some Basilicanum Gray, looks amazing, and I'm just so pleased with how this thing is turning out. He's just looking so cool.
Okay, I am basically done with the kernel with the exception of the branch and moss that are on him, and then we just need to take care of his base. But before we move on to the base and talk about what we're actually going to do for that, I just have to say, I love how his cloak came out.
Oh,
like,
let's see it.
Oh my gosh, like just, I know I've been probably gushing about it for a while, but I'm so pleased with how this came out. It came out so much better than what I ended up doing on my test, which is precisely...
Oh, yeah. Let's see the test.
Yes, which is precisely why you should test, especially when you're trying something new that you've never done before, or if you are like doing something freehand that maybe you're not as comfortable with, which I'm not really comfortable with freehand on models. I've gotten a lot better about it, and I think this cloak is a great example of that. But like, I practiced beforehand, adjusted as I went, and it came out so good. I'm just so happy. But let's actually talk about the base so that we can finish him up and actually get to looking at the final turnaround. So for the base, we've got his branch and there's some moss hanging off of it, so I'm going to use a couple of speed paints for that. I'm going to do the branch itself in dark wood because I want it to be slightly different from the wild wood I use on the weapon. And then I'm going to use Malignant Plague, or Malignant Green, I think is the color, which is sort of a very pale, soft yellow-green color tone that comes in the speed paint line, and I think it looks great for moss. Then for the base itself, I'm going to get them glued down, and then I'm going to apply some Stirland Mud as my texture paint.
Stirland what?
Stirland Mud as my texture paint.
What's Stirland Mud?
Mud? Well, it's a type of mud where you mix in moss and it turns slightly greenish.
Sick.
Yes, it's very lovely, but we're not using that one today. We're just using the normal brown mud stuff. Once that's dried and has a good texture going, we're going to dry brush it to enhance it using a little bit of Taldan sand, and then probably topping it off with a bit of Tyrant Skull because I like to sort of double layer my dry brushes. And after that, we're going to throw on some Gamers Crafts Tufts. I haven't decided which colors actually. I think I might be using just some of my really short ones, but honestly, they sent me a bunch recently, and I'm going to look through and see which ones I think are going to be best. So we'll see that and what choice I make there when we actually look at the final model.
Here he is, Colonel Corbec, and I am so happy with how this piece came out. I mean, you guys probably know that because I gushed about it the entire time while I was teaching you how I did this, but genuinely, I am just so tickled by how well the camo actually came out. I was incredibly nervous. I never feel comfortable going into freehand, like ever, but over the years and over like the course of this channel, I have proven to myself that I actually can do freehand and make it look amazing. And I can't wait to paint the rest of Gaunt's Ghosts so that I can continue to practice this camo pattern. Now, I'm not going to be doing this camo on my entire guard army. I feel like that's a little bit masochistic and I don't want to do that to myself. However, the full team of Gaunt's Ghosts will absolutely be getting it. And frankly, I might start to do some camo patterns on my Space Marines that maybe have the cloaks. Like some of the snipers would be cool to see that done, but maybe doing like a black and red pattern to sort of fit with the knights. I don't know. I have some fun ideas, and I think you can adapt what I did here with the camo to a variety of different colors. Not only could you do more natural camo color tones like a desert one or an ice world one, or something that is a little bit more like true green, jungle-y color tone, like brighter green, you could easily transition it into more alien color tones. Like honestly, I have this idea for like a yellow and orange one. That seems so cool to me. I think it would look really neat on either like Eldar or Tau, frankly. But regardless, I really enjoyed making this video and putting together this tutorial. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it yourself, and I want to give an extra special thank you to my patrons, because without their support, content like this wouldn't continue to happen on the channel. So thank you guys so much for supporting us. If you want to join them and get access to behind the scenes content where you get to see some of the stuff that I'm working on early, make sure to check the link down in the description below. In the meantime, I've been Angela, you've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!